a new pharmaceutical industry pathway. Even as we find our way on the treacherous path that is tariff negotiations with the United States, there are industries which are on relatively strong footing and could grow, assuming other ducks fall in line. At the recent BioAsia conference in Hyderabad, which I participated in, Boston Consulting Group released a report saying that India's Contract Research, Development and Manufacturing Organization, or CRDMO sector, is expected to expand from about $3.5 billion to date to about $22 to $25 billion by 2035. That's in about 10 years' time. The reason for this, BCG says, is because of global pharmaceutical realignments, increasing biologics demand, and India's cost efficiencies. It also highlights India's strong foundation in small molecule manufacturing while highlighting new opportunities in biologics, antibody drug conjugates or ADCs, gene therapies, and RNA therapeutics. There are, of course, regulatory and doing business challenges, and some of them are quite significant and seemingly more acute than what many other industries in India face. I reached out to Vikash Agarwalla, Managing Director and Partner at BCG's healthcare practice based out of Delhi, and I began by asking him to define CRDO for us, how it was different from generic drugs and exports of them, and talk about its larger potential.
Look, CRDMO is a very different industry versus what India is known for, i.e. generics. CRDMO stands for Contract Research, Development and Manufacturing Organization. These are companies which offer services to innovators. And when I say innovators, it is big pharma, it is the biotechs, which are working on developing and commercializing molecules which will be patent protected, right? Unlike generics industry where most of the products are launched after the patent is expired, right? So this is kind of innovate in India versus make in India kind of a story that I'm talking about. And they primarily help in three aspects to all these biotechs and innovators. One is on the drug discovery side, then development, and of course, manufacturing support during the clinical phase, also during commercialization. So that's what this industry does. In short, they work as a service provider to big pharma and biotechs, and they only work on molecules which will be patent protected, right? And therefore, there's a lot more development work that's needed.
Right. So this is a roughly $3.5 billion industry, which you are saying as Boston Consulting that could become much, much bigger in the next couple of decades. Before we come to that, what illustrates or what are the best illustrations of successful contract research and development projects, if we know them?
When you're talking about Indian companies?
Where Indian companies have done this kind of delivery.
So in India, there are multiple. I think a lot of these companies came together under the banner of IPSO very recently, right? So you would know Syngene, Piramal, Aragen, Newland, to name a few of them. They've been very successful. And also DVs, for example, they also have a very large innovator-based CDMO business, but currently not a part of IPSO though. So those will be the five, I would say, good names from India amongst the top companies in this particular sector. And of course, Laurus, that's also large.
And what would be a successful project that you are familiar with? Let's say, what kind of drug or medicine would they have manufactured, clinically tested, trialed, and then sent back?
So there are many, like even during COVID, many of these molecules that we all became household names were manufactured by many of these Indian companies, and they help not only in development, but also manufacturing and serving not just India's need, but also needs for patients all across the world. Yeah.
So why do you feel that this is a large opportunity in itself as compared to, let's say, other opportunities that India can specialize or evolve in?
This is about innovation, right? India historically has been known for being the pharmacy capital of the world. And unlike US and China now, there is a lot of work happening on innovation, right? And when I say innovation, if you look at a generic product versus when it was under patent, the value difference would have been, from a price point of view, almost 20x to times even 90x also, right? So which means that if you go on the innovation side, the value per unit volume equation goes up quite substantially, right? So it is an opportunity for India to move up that value curve. The second bit is, from a capability point of view, there are a lot of capabilities which are very similar in terms of where India is very strong, I would say, capabilities around chemistry, around manufacturing, around development. You have the starting base of capabilities, and this also gives you an opportunity to move up the curve from a value per unit volume perspective. And this is how, for example, China built a lot of scale companies. Wuxi, for example, you might know, the one single company which is almost 2x of the entire CRDMO sector in India, right? So opportunity is huge in my view. There are few factors which are kind of driving this opportunity in my mind. If you were to look at it, there are four key ones. First one is there are these global supply chains which are realigning. So people are looking at de-risking this entire discovery, development, manufacturing process and looking at various alternatives to China, for example. And India could be one of the natural alternatives in that context. Second one is also from a innovators point of view as well. And when I'm talking about innovators, not just big pharma, but also biotechs, they're also facing some sort of a pricing pressure, right? Given some of these acts like IRA. And that will mean that for the same amount of money, you need a larger runway to run. And India also provides cost advantage, which could be then helping some of these companies to get there. The third thing is government of India is very now keen on driving innovation out of India. And you'd have seen the BIRAC funding. There is a program called PRIP, which is just about to get into the disbursement phase very shortly. All of that is geared towards innovating in India. And that will also create some of the ecosystems which will help some of these CRDMOs to develop and grow. And lastly, but not the least, there is also a lot of, I would say, action around new modalities in the larger molecule space, where India can really leapfrog and build a lot of capabilities and provide a lot of alternatives to biotechs and big pharmas of the world. Yeah.
Would it be correct to say that for most, let's say a lot of Indian manufacturing in drugs is in the generic space, that we manufacture the powder or whatever and export it to countries like the US where it gets assembled and then sold? Is CRDMO a natural progression for this entire set or subset of companies?
So I would say the work is slightly different. The capability, it is similar, not exactly the same, right? Because in one area, you are looking at something which was already developed and trying to, in a way, kind of in very crude form, copy-paste, reverse engineer that. Whereas on CRDMO, you are actually, while the capability is the same, you need chemists, right? You need manufacturing guys, you need quality folks. But you are actually doing something which has not been done before. You are actually synthesizing something which is new chemical entity or a new biologic entity, something which is new to the world. And also it is a lot more, I would say, stringent from a process point of view, because this new drug will eventually find its way into a human being, right? So it has to be tested multiple times over, and the entire safety, efficacy, everything has to be guaranteed through the whole process. While the basic building blocks could be similar, but the industry is very, very different in my mind, at least, from the way the things get done and from the way the end customer looks at it. And this also, I would say, done well, this can provide a significant fillip to India's brand image globally as being the center for getting some of these most innovative products out there for the world.
Amongst the challenges that you pointed out, you said that the regulatory delays, which is 3 to 10 months longer than West in order for the industry to, let's say, get going faster. And you also said that there is a longer startup time because of reliance on China and West for raw materials. So how do we, what can India do to speed up here?
See, here, I would say there are a couple of things. One big intervention would be from a, I would say, policy simplification point of view. What I mean by that is, if we are to be truly competitive and in a global industry, rather than look at policies for this sector from the lens of what works in generics and then copy pasting that onto this, there should be separate policies from a CRDMO lens. A very good example could be picking up, say, what, for example, Korea is thinking right now, or China is doing, or what happens in West, and looking at our policies to kind of say what is something which are no-brainers and can be removed or eliminated or simplified. So that is one big lever. The second one, I think, which a lot of work is already starting to happen, but that needs a lot more fillip, is around this whole tier one ecosystem, suppliers to this industry. Given India's scale currently, there is not enough quality suppliers who are present in India, and therefore India has to import from China or West, depending on its small molecule or biologics. So basically creating that ecosystem in India, which could be through partnership with some of these suppliers and asking them to locate in India and make in India, and with some incentives maybe, could be very, very helpful. The third could be also, I would say, in short term, basically speeding up the clearance time at different bottlenecks during the supply chain, which should be a joint work between, I would say, industry and the various authorities. So those three things could really, I would say, debottleneck the timeline kind of an issue.
The CRDMO, I would say, so if generics is, let's say, lower down the value add chain, this is the next level. let's say, the more sort of original innovation and discoveries at the top level. And would that be a correct way to stack it?
This is the original discovery and innovation, right? So there is basically a new drug comes to this planet. And in that process, CRDMO is a service provider. So they will provide a service in terms of the research side, the discovery side, during the clinical phase, or it would be during the development and manufacturing phase. So they are actually working hands in gloves with the Pfizer's, Novartis's of the world and many biotechs which are in that particular area. Then once the drug goes off patent is when the generic industry comes in.
Got it. Vikash, thank you so much for joining me.
No worries. Thank you, Govind. Thanks for having me.